Meanwhile, the United States says it is ready to give Ukraine NATO-style security guarantees to support a potential ceasefire following talks in Berlin with European officials and Kyiv's delegation. The guarantees would be modeled in line with NATO's Article 5 Mutual Defense Clause, though details on sovereignty and contentious issues like the Donbass remain unresolved. President Zelenskyy described the meeting as productive but difficult, emphasizing that Ukraine needs clear security assurances before making further decisions. U.S. officials called the proposal the Platinum Standard and said it could be submitted for Senate ratification. European leaders and the U.S. will continue discussions this week as Ukraine faces ongoing energy attacks and economic challenges. President Trump told reporters the talks are closer than ever to a breakthrough, with further negotiations expected this weekend in the U.S.
Now, in the midst of the most intense and focused negotiations for peace since the beginning of this war, for true lasting peace. And we are not talking about a pause or a temporary uncertain solution. We are working closely with partners to finally end this Russian war against Ukraine. That's why the talks these days are not only about ceasefire, but about security guarantees. This is not only about diplomacy, not only about physical security. It's also about making Russia finally learn to live by the rule of law. And it will only work if there is true accountability, if the punishment of the aggressor becomes inevitable. Yes, it's not easy, but it's not as difficult as some may try to portray it.
Well, from our assessment of the latest developments around Ukraine, I'm joined now online from London by the author and international affairs analyst, Dr. Marek Laskowicz. Dr. Marek, glad to have you join me on The World. Yeah, let's start by you trying to break down what really is meant by NATO-style security guarantees that America is offering.
Well, this is one of the key problems, because America can, of course, say it's guaranteeing. The real question is, will it? For a start, Trump has already said it won't be forever, which is in itself puzzling. Secondly, there were guarantees before in 1994, and nothing's come of them. And therefore, it's quite not clear whether such a security guarantee is worth very much, which is why Zelenskyy is quite correctly pressing for far more details and also for them to be real guarantees. The only problem is you can't really have real guarantees in that sense of the world, because the USA can always simply not carry them out. And this is the nub of the issue.
Mentioned. So let me dive straight to that point you just talked about now, the forever issue. It's looking like Trump wants to railroad Zelenskyy into accepting the security offer by adding a caveat, like he just said, saying the offer won't be on the table forever. Is that what this is about?
Yes. And the railroading is exactly what he has in mind. And so therefore, this offer, please note that Ukraine has made a very good initial offer on its part, which is that it does not seek to be part of NATO. So one has to emphasize this point as well. And so what is left is, as you rightly say, Trump trying to railroad Ukraine so that some sort of peace treaty is signed and presumably he can win his Nobel Prize.
The sticking point in all this, Marek, is the question of territories. U.S. seems to be kowtowing, I don't know whether I'm correct to say that, to Russia's expectations. You know, and then Merz, the Chancellor of Germany, and Zelenskyy indeed are raising concerns about that factor, ceding of territories to Russia.
Yes, the fact of the matter is that Ukraine, backed by Europe, does not want to cede any territories to Russia. Russia wants to keep what it has gained and more besides, and Trump is supporting Russia to this. And therefore, as a result, there is a second sticking point, apart from the security guarantees, about how much, if any, territory should be ceded, and should it be de facto, needed to say some sort of ceasefire line, or should it be de jure? Whereas Ukraine would recognize this. And of course, Ukraine doesn't want it either de facto or de jure.
What does Zelenskyy mean when he says bilateral Article 5 guarantees will stop Russia?
I think, unfortunately, he's living in a fantasy land, because there are no such guarantees. It all hinges on whether USA actually wants to intervene subsequently. Moreover, please note, Russia has ruled out the possibility of there being any Western troops in Ukraine. So it's very hard to see exactly how these security guarantees would work such that Russia would agree to this. And there is the further point. Please note that in your clip, you pointed out Zelensky's once again accusing Russia of being not just the aggressor, but must pay and so on. Presumably has in mind reparations of war crimes. And so that's yet another sticking point, which means that any sort of peace treaty is most unlikely.
Now, you've mentioned that. That's another question, whether Russia is going to accept this tweaked offer. What are your expectations?
I don't expect it to be quite honest. It set out its 28 points. Ukraine has set out its 20. There is a great deal of gap between them. It's not possible to see how can they possibly meet over the four issues I've just stated. And so therefore, I don't expect Russia to agree. I expect them to come back with a counteroffer, with which Ukraine won't agree, and to go back with a counteroffer to Russia, on and on.
And forth. Now, Putin says Russia will achieve objectives through military, if necessary, even if they want diplomatic solutions of the conflict.
Quite right. What he's saying is either Ukraine accepts his 28-point plan, or else they'll conquer the territory anyway. That is Putin's simple stance on the matter. And right now, that is actually what's ongoing, because that is, of course, what Russia is doing.
And then von der Leyen says EU must fund Ukraine to protect itself, says Europe's era of independence must be unstoppable. No problem that this is no longer an option, but a must. This is looking like a veiled dig at the Trump administration. There's also the question of tapping into Russia's assets. What about, I gather, $250 billion or thereabout, or euros?
Well, there are two aspects here. First and foremost, it's unclear what he means by must. Many people have musts. The question is whether they can actually achieve this. And secondly, tapping into Russia's billions, legally speaking, that is a very dodgy move. Very dodgy move. And the problem is that, in effect, it could be deemed even illegal. And that's what Belgium's worried about, that Russia will come back at them, and that therefore, as a result, far from this helping, this will be a huge problem.
Now, how is Europe, and indeed, is America really interested in stopping Russia from probing further into Europe? And this whole, from the picture you're painting, one is thinking, can peace be achieved? What's your sense? What do you think?
You have to distinguish between peace in Ukraine, which is most unlikely, and the notion that Russia will press forward further. In my books, I've indicated I think this is likely. And America, on the other hand, simply wants to do business with Russia. Trump does not like wars. He doesn't like this one. He wants all those Russian raw materials. That's what he's really after, and to do normal business with Russia. Indeed, Europe has historically also wanted to do business with Russia. However, the point about this is will America support Europe if Russia was to push on, for example, Poland, as I indicated in my books would be the subsequent point? It's unclear, to be quite honest, because Trump is incalculable, but he has made it quite clear there is no automatic support of America for Europe, for Poland, or for Ukraine. And certainly in the case of the last, he has demonstrated this.
Why von der Leyen was saying what she was saying, that it's now a question of a must to Europe must enter into an era where they have to take care of their own security by themselves.
Yeah, well, the problem is they can't. It's all very well saying they must. The point is, how? They don't have the money, they don't have the equipment, they don't even have the willpower, because all the polls which have been taken show that about only 50% of the country wants to fight. And in terms of money, in terms of development, it's not that easy to develop things. Saying that Europe must be independent is just simply a wish. It has to be done. It's like, how can I put it? It's like when Radosław Sikorski of Poland said that they could develop their systems with Elon Musk. Elon Musk simply laughed because it takes a long time to develop systems. And there's no sign that Europe is indeed, in particular Poland, of course, capable of doing so.
So are you then saying that Europe is incapable of stopping Putin, Russia, and America, which wants to do business with Russia, is not particularly really interested in what Europe is doing or Ukraine?
Yeah, it's not automatic support. It's not that they automatically regard Russia as the bad guy. That's what America's approach is now. They want to work with it. And incidentally, as I pointed out, the subsequent attack on Europe and on Poland, for example, will be nuclear. And that's way out of Europe's capabilities. The question is whether Trump is prepared to work with Russia, even though Russia wishes to expand. And there is no easy answer to this. And it certainly isn't, as it has been for the past decades, an automatic idea that America will stop Russia come what may.
Well. The picture seems bleak, the way you've put it, Dr. Marek Laskowicz. I mean, for the people of Ukraine who are dying, and then even some Russians, one just hope that one way or the other they'll get around this. But thank you so much from London there, author and international affairs analyst. Always interesting discussing with you, Dr. Marek Laskowicz.